All right, everyone. Thanks for watching this channel. And as you can see, I have a special guest for you guys today. Her name is Jamye Price. I think a lot of people know, especially if you're from the Western countries, but maybe for the Japanese audience, may not know much. But I really hope you guys to get in touch with her because I feel her energy and also her purpose or the message so great for not just for the Western country people, but also for the Japanese audience. So yeah. So again, Jamie, thank you so much for appearing on my channel.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yes. So yeah. So the title of this particular transmission, so to speak, is Bridging Ascension 2026. Which I sort of put this title for this conversation because we are at the beginning of 2026, and a lot of people sort of knows or anticipating about the open contact because my followers in Japanese channel started watching my channel because of the Bashar's video. So a lot of people sort of familiar with Bashar's sort of predictions. I know he doesn't really say prediction, but he's making anyway. So I can call it prediction. It's 2027 is going to be the extraterrestrials will be introduced from the governmental institutions. And so 2026 is going to be the year of disclosure, as Bashar says. But anyways, I think a lot of anticipations, a lot of um, people's thinking about what they should do, what's to expect, all that kind of stuff. So I thought sort of bridging Ascension 2026 is going to be all about bridging ourselves, preparing for the 2027 on future, and that is has to be more interacting with really higher dimensional beings, higher dimensional energy. So I thought this would be the perfect timing and of course a perfect person to ask this kind of questions. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. All right. So before we sort of dive into our conversation, I think my viewers may be wondering or sort of wanting to listen to your, backgrounds or, what you do actually, and also how you got to this, how you got to well, what you do right now. So would you please briefly introduce yourself, please, to
Sure.
the audience, maybe? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I always like to start with I was not a psychic child, and my opening happened later in my life. I'm so grateful that there are people that started open, and that we also know that even if we haven't always been psychically open, that this is something that's natural to us. And so it can happen at any time. My opening started gradually from my late teens into my 30s. And by my 30s, it was very strong, where I could see people's auras. I would see that just walking down the street sometimes, and I would hear my guides. So my clairaudience was something that was always very strong once my
Mm,
opening occurred. And what eventually, as I recognized that that was happening, because it took me a while to even recognize that I wasn't just dreaming or having unusual thoughts or anything.
mm,
But once I started realizing that, it really became something that I was so engrossed in, maybe I would say obsessed,
mm,
because it was just fascinating to me that we were so much more than we had been taught, and that our psychic senses are so natural. Our energy healing capabilities are natural. Channeling is something that's natural to us. We just have to exercise those muscles like we would anything else.
mm,
And what started occurring for me was energy healing became at the forefront of my journey. And part of that was what became known as crystalline soul healing, and my guides teaching me how to do energy healing. And that I didn't realize it at the time, but they were creating a very specific technique.
mm.
And then also simultaneously with that, light language was opening up for me. And I didn't have a context for that verbalized expression that was occurring. And so
So
that
it's
was
just
Whole
So
other
it just
journey.
happened like, so you didn't know about language itself. You just come like all of a sudden without
Yes.
you knowing about language.
Yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
And luckily, it
yeah,
started with signing. And
yeah.
I was already working on clients. They would lay on the massage table with their eyes closed. And I was doing energy healing as my guides directed me, which was just standing there with my hands generally just out, just because it
Hmm.
was, more comfortable than just standing there. And I would hear things from my guides. I would have a guidance to like now go to this place. And then I would stand there for a while. I would see and feel things and hear things. And after I had an axiotonal alignment in the early 2000s, that same process, my body would start twitching. And then eventually my hands would start moving really fast. And I was just observing that process and thought it was so cool. And when I would ask my guides what was occurring, they would not say, "This is light language and here's all of the details about it." They would give me other information about it, like there's this many people on earth that are doing this, and that number would go up and down, sometimes very dramatically. They would talk about what was occurring in the body, or they would talk about or show me things that were occurring with the DNA and how the whole process is just putting us into a state of movement and alignment. And we just happen to express with light language, even though it can be silent as well.
Mm.
So all of that was occurring simultaneously. And once I hit those early 30s and, my psychic senses were fully open, I was being taught energy healing and light language was opening up. That was full throttle for me at that point, and I was committed. This is my path and
Yeah.
total obsession.
Wow. So that's basically how you started with your kind of a spiritual psychic path, and you started. So up until then, you were not really, as you say, fully committed. So you were sort of working for a regular job, or up until
Yeah.
that point, and then
Yep.
you started your own sort of business, so to speak, or practice from then
Mhm.
on, like full throttle mode from
Well,
30 years
it
on.
It definitely took some time, and I still worked in corporate for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
I would say at least 5 years, maybe seven. I don't know off the top of my head. And I
Yeah.
remember right at the very end, I realized because I always kept it very separate. Even my website at the time only had my first name, it didn't have my last name. There was no
Mm.
pictures of me, it was not identifying at all. And right at the very end of corporate, I realized that one of our vendors had Googled me. And I was like, oh, it can't continue to be hidden. And everything just flowed naturally. It wasn't that showed me it was time. It was a lot of things where I could tell doors were opening and doors were closing. And so that was my signal. Otherwise, it's best to make sure that you are safe and stable and secure financially and all of the other things that you're doing because the path will always be shown as it's meant to be.
Mm.
And that was over 15 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
almost 50, no, I'm sorry. That was a little over 10 years ago at this point. And let's see, 20, no, sorry, math on the spot. That was around 2009 and 10
Okay.
as I was transitioning out of that. And so
Mm.
here we are over 15 years later.
Okay.
So that process was a longer one for me. And yet it was clear when it was time. And
Mm.
even at that, I still had panic sometimes. Like I remember after I had left corporate, now I was committed on the path, like this is the way I'm going. I created some light language CDs and had a great audio engineer working with me. He was so kind and so helpful. And he sent me home with the raw tracks once we
Mm.
had everything recorded. And I listened to those and I freaked out. I was like, what have I done? Oh my God, this is so weird. I left everything behind for this. And luckily, we weren't scheduled for like another 3 days. And I just kind of had to purge through all of that last fear.
Mm.
And that was it for me.
Mm.
There was one other tiny little bump that by the time that one came, I was like, Psh, bring it on. I'm so ready because at that point, once I went through that final piece of, oh my gosh, what have I done? That was it. I
Mm.
knew I was on the right path, that
Mm.
I had to follow my soul and follow through with the things that really called to me. And oh my goodness, I do not regret that at all.
Mm. Yeah. Great, great. So it's been about 15 years or so, and I'm sure it's been a exciting ride and also expanding, growing experience. 15 years for you, and yeah, hopefully, and yeah, and also I believe that this past 15 years, like probably Bashar mentioned this before, but 2012 was one of those thresholds for the humanity, and 2012 on was acceleration of human consciousness expansion. And a lot of people sort of, stepped into that field, including myself. I've started sort of quitting my job as a corporate sort of officer type of thing in 2015. So that was the time I sort of committed to the path of where I'm now. So I think a lot of people started to sort of moving in that kind of direction around that time. So yeah, you're one of those
Yeah.
early sort of adapter, so to speak. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and we continue to have those waves. We had another wave around 2020,
Yeah.
and that really opened a lot of people up. And we'll continue to have those. And then even for those of us that are already on the path, we're still affected by those waves.
Mm,
And I call these waves, sometimes there are opening waves depending on what you're experiencing. And then for those of us that are already on it, those also entail waves of deepening or greater personal responsibility, more deepening on the path, more clarity within it. And so
mm,
we're continuing to go through these times of a lot of opening. And so either it's what seems like, oh, now I'm opening up to this more and more for the first time, quote
mm,
unquote, or it's I'm opening to a deeper level. And so that path of adaptability and change, it's constant within this and fascinating to watch the things like the 2012 and 2020 and all of those things that are more obvious to us because they come with some expectations of some wow factor, and yet what ultimately tends to happen is they are times of a slower process than expected of really deepening into things. So they bring a lot of purging or release
mm,
cycles along with the activation because those two are always simultaneous, two sides of one coin. When you
mm,
release, you activate. When you activate, you release. And so it can feel like back and forth, like a season changes, but it's all of us going through these waves of deepening more into our authentic selves.
mm. Right. Wow. Great. So, yeah, so that was your story. And also, I guess I wanted to talk about kind of a segue to the first topic, which is kind of bridging into 2027 and how the 2026 is going to be like. And so, I don't know what, I think you've already mentioned in your channel as well about the outlook for the 2026, but yeah, in terms of bridging into 2027, open contact, in that kind of context, what would you say about 2026 is going to be like
Yeah.
for, yeah.
So we just came off of a really challenging year. I mean, it to 2025, I hope there were people that were just totally breezing through it, but just to even feel some of those collective energies that are going on, it really was a year of a lot of purging and a year of a lot of change. And for those of us that are on an empowerment journey or ascension, which is just a natural evolution of becoming more conscious with the subtle realm, that to feel those energies and go through those changes was kind of like a strengthening year for us. And so then that's leading us into 26, which is similar in the way that there's still going to be a lot of intensity collectively because we are going through times of great change.
Mm,
And change is naturally stressful for people, most often unconsciously, where they will emotionally act out because they resist change. And so, still, our work will be to stay more clarified and stable within ourselves in order to continue adapting to the change that's here and continuing. So when I think about 26, especially as you framed it in comparison to 27 or our continual journey of change, when I think about 26, it feels like continuing that energy of who am I going to be? How am I going to be? Rather than just what do I do to get there. And those things always have to be there because doing is natural in linear time. When we think about it from the perspective of being, it's doing with more consciousness.
mm,
So even with something like preparing for contact, it would be more about how am I going to be? What is my resonance so that I'm aligned with that kind of change? That stability through that change is more possible, even though it's not about controlling it so that there's no ups or downs.
mm,
So 26 is really a year of us strengthening more within so that we are prepared for the constant change that's around us right now. And my guides, Ariane, the Lyrian Council of Time, they focus a lot, almost exclusively, on our inner journey. So that all of these externals that are other people's part of their focus, not that Bashar only focuses there, but that we have that fuller balance of the external and the internal, because those two are always interactive. So while they focus more on that internal and they don't talk as much about contact or some of the physicals of the external, the two are always hand in hand because 26 is about refining our natural internal external flow. And they framed this from the standpoint of understanding love because they consider love this neutral, unconditional aspect of life that we could call connection, we could call it consciousness. They consider that the core of life. It's like the binding force, it's the creative force that from this love of life, we create or life creates. And so for 26, it's about each of us getting much clearer or going to a deeper level of how we are interacting with life from more of that empowered, unconditional love within the realm of conditions. And so, all of that
mm,
external change that's going on, how do we observe it? Even have some of those things because we're in linear time that go, I like that, I don't like that. I want that, I don't want that. That duality play, how do we connect those with love
mm,
and go, whoa, there's a really traumatic or awful one from my perspective that I don't agree with. How can I internally neutralize to that so that I can flow a different energy instead of I don't want, which contracts us, or I'm completely open and have no boundaries, which
mm,
depletes us.
mm,
So really clarifying that strength and stability and empowerment and neutrality as all of that change is flowing.
mm. Thank you. But yeah, as I hear it, it is like going back to the basic, so to speak, because unconditional love is all the basis of all existence and what we do, what we are. And sort of we are at the stage of really tuning into that unconditionality or neutrality for everything we see, everything we do for 2026, and which really makes sense. So yeah, thank
Yeah.
you for that. Yeah.
Because those that resist change are amplifying their methods
Mm,
in order to pull our energy and get us out of that neutrality.
mm,
And getting to those core messages of neutrality, unconditionality, and things requires that we fully understand it because often when we start, we either think something like, oh, unconditional love means I'm open and I love everyone.
mm,
Yes, at its core, how do you apply that in the conditional realm? Do
mm,
you lock your doors at night because not everybody is at the same place? Or are you so unconditional that you keep your doors unlocked and you're like, whatever, like it's a
mm,
balance of where am I at in this moment? How does this apply here? And what's the wisdom choice within that? Just like neutrality, when we first start with that, we confuse it with I don't care or I'm not interested in the human condition because I'm so neutral. What we discover, though, as we keep moving through that path, is that neutrality is not, I don't care. It's that I understand so deeply the unconditionality of the universe that will say, if you're going to harm, I still give you the keys to life. Just like I give the people that are here to love and empower and elevate humanity, they are also given the keys of life. So we make these personal choices that deepen that energy here because we all know that when people are harming, they are either ignorant and need to understand with more clarity, or they are dysfunctional within, they are distorted. And so, in order to feel some of that love and empowerment from that distorted view, then they harm. And so our work is getting into that clarity of being that knows what's my wisdom choice here in this moment. Is it a time to say, yes, I'm open? Is it a time to say, no, I'm closed? And can I do each of those from love, even beyond what may be comfortable in the moment? So these always become about more empowerment, more strength and stability to understand neutrality from that unconditional place and apply it in the realm of conditionality.
mm. Right. Yeah. As I listen to you, I the that word sort of a transparency to yourself popped into my head. Like it's almost like same as becoming more and more get in touch with your core essence or core being is basically love. That's what we are. So it's not so much about superficially expressing I love you, I love you, I love you type of things, but more of inner getting touch with who we truly are, who I really am type of reflection or understanding is something more important going forward. That's what I sort of received
Yeah.
from your narrative. Yeah,
Yeah. And then that gives us the discernment to be able
yeah.
to deal with something like open contact. What's what's appropriate for me, what's healthy for me, what's positive or negative, quote unquote, for me. And that discernment comes from that empowerment and that neutrality to be able to see more clearly. So
Mm,
important things as we move along this whole path of fascinating and sometimes very fast change.
yeah, yeah. Great. Thank you. And so I think I was going to talk about language, but I think it's better to maybe first talk about Japan and the rest of the world
That's
topic.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly
and
where I wanted to go with this.
oh, okay, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because yeah, I thought that's natural flow to talk about it. So yeah, as I mentioned before shooting this video, that what I do right now is to sort of reach out to people outside of Japan because I personally feel that Japan will be playing a big role or important role at least for humanity going forward. We've been sort of keeping it to ourselves more, preserving ourselves more internally or inside of the nation border, so to speak, up until now. But I think it's about time as the sort of a tourist number grows, expanding exponentially recently, that I think phenomena itself proves that Japan sort of needs to sort of interact more and more with the rest of the world. So that's part of my mission and passion too right now. So I just want to sort of talk about that aspect of so ascension is all about Earth as a whole, raising vibration and connecting with the universe. And that includes obviously Japan as well, and in connection with the rest of the world. So how do you see about Japan and the rest of the world relationship is going to be like 2026 and on from your perspective?
Yeah. So, first of all, every culture has its positives and negatives, and when we live together in a group, we have certain things that we just understand naturally. And when I first started going to Japan, one thing that really stood out to me is how empathic Japanese people are.
Mm,
And of course, that's all over the world.
mhm,
However, as a culture, there's a lot of sensitivity and focus into detail, which is something that empaths naturally do,
mhm,
even on an unconscious level, because we get very aware of everything that's going on around us. And Japanese people are just naturally very sensitive like that. And of course, every generalization does not apply to every single person in the same way.
mhm,
So, once I started visiting there, I was like, oh my goodness, this is very important. And I believe, is it the hikikomori? Am I saying that
mhm.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once I learned about that, I was like, oh my goodness, look at how this is even being dealt with and manifested on a very specific level where the sensitivity and these new generations especially will not be able to tolerate or function just business as usual. This is what we
Mm,
do. We all do the same thing, and life is changing globally. And what I have seen in my observation is that the Japanese people have a very natural ability to problem solve in ways that benefit the whole more than
mm,
many other cultures would,
mm,
especially like the American culture. We often will problem solve on individual levels, and it may not reach broader levels as easily
mhm,
because the way that our society is guided is very individualistic, and then that ends up occurring with our leaders that they are more for themselves rather than the whole.
mm,
So, and all again, generalization.
mhm,
So, what I see with the Japanese culture in general is this great ability to problem solve and lead things in a direction that is more beneficial to the whole.
mm,
And that's what this time of ascension is all about, because we are all individuals in separate bodies having separate experiences. That's the linearity of our physicality. But we also know, and as Ariane teaches, we are 99.9 plus percent invisible or connected
mm,
or nonlinear. And that's the aspect that we are opening up to consciously. And so, in order to expand into our collective consciousness, we have to become more aware and conscientious of the connection, of the things that are invisible, but that actually create this physical separate experience. So we need the individuality, but especially right now, we need that within the context of connection. And all of those, or both of those, the individual and the collective, being served fully.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Japanese culture naturally has a an understanding of the collective or the individual within the collective.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So would you say like for maybe put for the message for the Japanese audience that might be listening to this from you is because Japanese people naturally sort of understand the whole connection to the bigger picture or bigger group mentality, so to speak, would it be more helpful for Japanese people to more individually expressive about their energy or service? Would you say that? Or what?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What would you say to maybe Japanese audience that are listening to this?
Absolutely. Because the empaths, especially, may have a tendency to sacrifice the self for others.
Hmm.
And what we truly want is empowered individuals that share their energy appropriately. And it's a healthy flow instead of I only give. And so, in order to find that balance, empaths often need to have that strength and stability as an individual to then be able to say yes and no or give and receive with their energy flow as appropriate. So, really honoring and understanding themselves individually and that self love of now it's time for me to replenish or to receive is often more important than understanding when and how to give because that's more natural.
Hmm.
So finding that strength as an individual, just as you put it, is vitally important because then you're flowing from that wellspring of I'm replenished.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. This is kind of my personal probably viewpoint, but as I sort of traveled around the world in 2023 with my wife, and I looked all around the world, and then come back to Japan and get in touch with the Japanese energy, and then I felt so yeah, I'm Japanese. So I'm sort of used to the Japanese energy, but after sort of a half a year traveling and come back to home, I really felt the Japanese energy is very different, very unique. So, and then that's something that Japanese people don't know actually much about themselves because they don't really go out. So they only know about Japanese energies. But I think like if they get to know about the uniqueness and the specialness about Japanese energy, they may be willing to more open up to people from outside of Japan and offer that energy. You don't really have to be like powerful or special or anything, by just being giving willing to sort of share the Japanese energy of I don't know, love or connection with nature type of things, may that energy alone may seem sort of a benefit to the people outside of Japan, or even the creation or creatives of Japanese, regular Japanese people. Sometimes, surprises me too about how artistic they are and how unique their creation is. So yeah, I also feel like it's about time for them to sort of start providing those, creations or energies to the people outside of Japan who don't really get to experience those unique energies. So that's what I hope seeing happening going forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just hearing you talk about it, it's actually making me tear up a little bit because
Mm.
I haven't been to Japan physically since COVID.
Mm.
And I don't think I've ever shared this publicly, but every time I would come home from Japan,
Hmm.
sorry,
Yeah, it's all right.
I would have to reacclimate myself to
Mm-hmm.
interacting with people because, again, generalization, it's not like I walk down the street and everybody's like, oh my God. But when you meet Japanese people and you're interacting with them,
Yeah.
and there's just so much love that flows,
Mm.
there's this natural innocence of who they are
Yeah.
because they just want to be so open.
Mm.
And it's hard to get used to after I come back. So I kind of have to reacclimate myself to not feeling that with people so easily.
Mm.
And It's exactly what you were saying. This creativity and
Mm,
this spark and this love that's so profound
mm,
and flows so easily when there's a safe environment. And
mm,
that's exactly how it should be, that
mm,
that we're meant to feel safe in so many situations. And
mm,
ultimately, as humanity evolves into more connection, that would just naturally be there because nothing else can be hidden.
mm,
But it's going to take a while for humanity to get there. But that's
mm,
something that the Japanese people hold so strongly is this deep innocence and love and passion and creativity
mm,
because of that sensitivity.
mm.
It's almost like the world has to get ready for that.
Wow, that's a great message. I'm sure I'm gonna be sharing with that my Japanese channel audience too. They're gonna love it hearing it because I've been sort of saying this kind of stuff, but it's different from someone from outside of Japan, especially working in the spiritual field, saying this kind of stuff has a different weight on it. So thank you for that. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
have to tell you,
Yeah.
just as I started talking about that,
Yeah.
I'm on the second floor and there's a window out there.
Yeah.
And I started hearing this loud noise,
Okay.
and it is a squirrel
Mm-hmm.
that is just so entranced with what was going on at that moment that he was like all over the window and looking in. And I just had to share that message because I feel like squirrel energy just had to be there, like in that discussion.
Yeah. He's excited. Excited to
Yes,
join. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Great. That and I love that energy too. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we've been talking. Oh wow, this long. So yeah, lastly but not least, obviously the light language is also your specialties, and I've seen your sort of a light language video as well, and that was so very profound and influential. And so I just wanted to get in touch with that as well in context of bridging into Ascension 2026. And so I know you mentioned about light language being a connection between linear space-time reality and nonlinear, non-physical realm. So would you be sharing that idea a little bit and also how that'll be, how should I say, involved in the humanity going forward on to 2026 on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting because in many ways light language can seem very unusual, and especially in the early days, I remember someone saying, "I have the rare gift of light language," and I thought, "No, this gift is not rare. It's less common right now, but this is so natural to us." And it's part of how we understand the linear reality of physical time space and how we bridge that with the communication that is always happening non-linearly. And so it helps us to understand from something that's very, very important to us versus being quiet in meditation or being quiet with energy healing, which is also important. Light language gives us an understanding of direct communication.
Mm,
And so something that we see as I received it, I understand it, I expressed it, communication that helps us understand our linearity. Light language gives us the opportunity to understand our non-linearity just as clearly.
mm,
And what it shows us is that we are constantly receiving and emitting information. And so it helps us understand that nonlinear aspect of ourselves, the 99 plus percent of ourselves, more clearly.
mm,
So light language just gives us an expression of our nonlinearity. And yet, I like to point out that we always have this. We always have had this. It's just how do we bridge that and connect that with something like our verbal communication?
Mm-hmm.
As we are speaking right now, we've got memorized and contextualized words that we've all agreed upon the meanings and we were taught them. Say this way, memorize it, and this is what it means from the external.
Mm-hmm.
With light language, we have that same kind of process, but from internal.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as we are receiving or emitting light language, we are exercising those nonlinear muscles of understanding and defining and refining our meanings of what's going on around us and within us.
Mm-hmm.
So, what it's opening up for us is more of that exercise of how do I perceive the nonlinear? What does that feel like? What is that understanding that I'm having? And how can I learn to communicate, receive, and express in ways that are not as linear? And then I keep bridging more of that nonlinearity and nonlinearity. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
it's here for us to do is
Mm-hmm.
to understand our expression and how we receive communication in nonlinear ways.
Mm-hmm. So, as I hear it, so it's not so much about because it says language, our natural understanding about the word language is like the tools to communicate with other human beings. But for this particular language thing, it's more about your relationship with the nonlinear space, or maybe you can call it source or higher realm. It's more like a building pipeline, so to speak, with the nonlinear space so that you can become more consciously aware of that space. So it's not so much for sort of communicating with other people. It may sort of stimulate upon listening to your expression of light language, something they will sort of receive on their own. But it's not so much about the communication between sort of individuals, right? For this light language.
Right.
Yeah.
It in the sense that what it's helping us to do is to understand language in a broader way,
Mm-hmm.
to understand it as communication, or even more importantly, to understand it as information.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start to bridge that with many other things like energy flow. Well, instead of that broad thing of, oh, I'm flowing energy, to understand it from I'm flowing information or information is flowing to me. And so it helps us to take the linear into broader spaces. And then it helps us to take the nebulous things that we may not connect with our constant interaction with life and bring it into information flow,
Mm-hmm.
which is why the term light is part of it because it's helping us to understand the carrier vehicle. And light is how we experience this duality that things are either externalized with light or they're in the shadow, they're in the darker part. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in the duality of light versus dark. We
Mm-hmm.
could also call that external versus internal or electric versus magnetic, just to get
Mm-hmm.
some of those opposites in there. So it helps us to refine our understanding of the carrier vehicle or how information flows,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the information that's constantly around us. And so
Mm-hmm.
we take the linear to nonlinear, and we take the nonlinear into our linear understanding.
Mm-hmm.
One of the examples that I give in class when I'm teaching this is we're doing this constantly and we have information flow all the time. And here's one that I use. Like, what does this mean? Am I closed off? I'm sorry, I'm having to do it a little weird just to get it in the frame, but am I closed off? Am I angry? Am I resistant to you? Or am I cold? We have to contextualize in order to understand more deeply what's going on. And there's not just one meaning for that. And so we have to go a little more internal. Well, what am I sensing from Jamie? Is she angry? Is she upset? Does it have nothing to do with me? Is she cold? So that's part of what we've always been doing with facial expressions and body language, tone of voice, things that might say, I love you. Did
Mm.
that sound real? We have to discern tone of voice. That's like,
Mm.
no, something doesn't feel right. Or if someone is actually genuine, but they're a little uncomfortable. So it's part of helping us to refine some of that sensitivity of nonlinear communication flow.
Mm. Wow. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, we kind of been speaking much longer than I thought. Before we sort of going into the closing part, do you? Because I'm not really sure because I haven't really done interaction about the light language before, but would you like sharing some of the light language in this context, or it's not really appropriate
No,
along this line?
absolutely.
Oh, it is, is
Yeah,
it? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
oh, okay. So, I don't know how to sort of introduce this. So, so when you do this kind of a light language, is it how do you sort of bring it out? It's like sort of says some sort of intention for the light language, or the message is just naturally come down to you, or how does it work when you do this light
So,
language?
one, because it's naturally connective,
Mm-hmm.
it will naturally have more of a loving intention.
Mm,
Now,
okay.
that depends on the individual
Right.
because if I wanted to uh, influence someone, or what is the word? Like if I wanted to manipulate someone, I
Mm,
might say, I love you. Oh, I
right,
want the
right.
best for you, but maybe I'm manipulating. And yet that connective energy of light language, it filters through the individual, but it also has this natural connective energy. And
Mm,
so it can help move through some of those things that we're naturally experiencing. So, setting intention is why you started there. So, I want people to have their own discernment with it. And one of the ways that I teach that in class is before you receive anything, you can set your own intention. I only allow what's for my highest good.
mm-hmm.
And as you do that, you're open to what's beneficial for you, but you're setting some of those boundaries with things that you may not want to receive. And
Mm,
then if there's something that's appropriate for you to receive, the light language is still going to be there, helping to release and activate through your higher self in ways that are beneficial for you.
mm.
So
Wow.
there's that intention from the receiving standpoint. And
Okay.
then from the giving standpoint, um, you can set an intention or not. And if you don't, just whatever's for the highest good is what will flow because of that natural connective energy. So,
Right.
what I like to do is talk people through that. I only
Mm-hmm.
allow what's for my highest good. And then for this one, I'm feeling drawn to set the intention for the overall energies of the year, which is understanding love.
Mm,
So that, especially from this context of our conversation, we can deepen that understanding of love through the balance of the self
mm-hmm.
and how that naturally interacts with all life around us. So
Great.
we'll set that as the intention. And then as I'm doing the light language, what I recommend, you can either close your eyes or open your eyes, whatever you prefer. But rather than focusing on what you think my words or the sounds or the movements mean, just sense whatever you're feeling. You might
Mm-hmm.
feel something physical, like a tingling sensation or hot or cold. You might feel something emotional, like peace or sorrow releasing. You might have some thoughts or mental perceptions that arise, like, oh, it reminds me of this, or any other kind of psychic impression. So just relax and see what you notice.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Demiarat tum harkiarat abderhat inen sachairu uram, braur hakram dat amse klil erentad shairoman im, bror hakrabt ormad, nam haklailer tashteru utsum cheragmad. Nem hakairut ur heliat ot umam, bro hakrandat em suchumnum dat il, daro hokrum atakirtand am, bro stairut sektirt end, delertiam awa akaim. Nan haratum ashtairub satcharat anklel rama brom haktirat amsuch rumdat il dan hreak aquarma horm tahirab awa bro hantianam ansatcharat ukwarem kaimeg and hat huama kawa sem shora mai baru sem sheruma huim kat u Ton ormat brema kraelastun at sachairum, brema kraim hatinin erut u, san shairokm atet ur aler enen, mnairut uquem, breastut hussam charuk uquem, tani erokoremek antoreme a, sem shaimim hatinin. Sarastairu kokuemet anstaimem, chanenek endek il renod sachurut set aratok oquam. Kananan alkrayat and sut teruk Pranat saisu. Samya tawa. Good. Take another relaxing breath. And for everyone to know, your higher self is releasing or activated as appropriate for you. So, whatever you were sensing is perfect because it's individual in that way. And then I want to share some of the things that I was getting on a more collective experience there. So, some of the things that stood out was one, I was feeling a lot of release from the throat and the heart so that the heart can express more easily.
Mm,
And there was a lot of what they were showing me as clearing the vision or clearing the eyes.
mm,
Most importantly, to be able to see the true nature of the self and then to be able to discern more clearly the things that are going on around you. And then lastly, the thing that stood out was the frontal lobe connecting with the limbic system or the subconscious mind more directly, which is something that Ariane has been talking about for quite a few years. They call it the tri-wave brain flow, so that we don't just have that natural two hemispheres. What the tri-wave brain flow does, as they describe it, is connect the frontal lobe and the subconscious, or the unconscious and the conscious, so that we can interact with the infinite mind. And subconscious is not just, oh, it's the things I don't know about. It's the vastness that, yeah, you might not know all of the details, but our brain has the capacity to connect in that way.
mm,
And as that was occurring, I was remembering conversations that I've had with Lisa Royal Holt of
mhm,
how often when she starts something, and what even happened with me, that Japan is often part of that just because of the energy of how the Japanese naturally get into those details. She and I have found that we often started new things there because of how it naturally refines. And so when I saw that connected to this energy so strongly of that frontal lobe and the subconscious or the tri-wave brain flow, I was like, oh, this makes sense that it's coming into more clarity within this discussion, this energy.
mm. Wow. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
Experiences from you?
Oh yes. I felt in the halfway. I my heart started to really getting warm and warm and yeah. I don't really usually feel the heat, so to speak, or warmness, so to speak, um, like this. So yeah, that was very notable sensation during I hear it. Yeah.
Oh, there was one more thing. Um, Even the discussion we had right before it
Mm-hmm.
of I only allow what's for my highest good.
Mm-hmm.
As they were running the energies, they were talking about how important that is and why it came up in this discussion, especially for the Japanese people, but for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
is that discernment of boundaries. It's so important for empaths
Mm-hmm.
because we will tend to stay open or overgive or never want to say no to something. And it's that boundary of what's for my highest good
Mm-hmm.
is always for the highest good of life.
Mm.
So, an important one for people to hear.
Right, right. Yeah, I agree. That's important for especially Japanese people who are empathic or very kind, naturally kind. They just kind of just yeah, give away everything and yeah, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
important too. Yeah,
Yeah.
great. Wow. That was very quick actually. I can't believe it's been an hour. I feel like I just, whipped through all these hours. So but that was very great experience. So thank you for your energy, love for the audience, and yeah, I hope we stay in touch and maybe do some other things for the global audience, including Japanese people, if that's possible. That'll be
That'd
great.
be wonderful. Yes.
Yes. So any departing or last message from you for audience, maybe for the Japanese specifically, or maybe global audience,
Mm.
please?
These are definitely intense times, and there's a reason that you're on this path. There's a reason why you're interested in connecting with the subtle realm or connecting with our cosmic family or connecting with yourself and the power that's naturally within us. So, this is a time of us strengthening and clarifying and really living boldly, as Ariane says it, the love that we are. And sometimes that does mean saying yes, sometimes it does mean saying no, but that's what this time is for. You're here for a reason. You bring a special, unique energy here to life, and that flows from you naturally. So find that love within, and that kindness naturally flows in healthy ways for you and for everyone else.
Hmm. Okay, great. Thanks for a great message. And thank you, everyone watching. And hopefully, that was sort of a good guidance, so to speak, energy guidance for the 2026. And we'll have a wonderful year together and hope to see you again. So, thank you guys watching. And thank you, Jamie, for participating in this.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much.
Yes. Okay. Bye bye, guys. Thank you for watching.